adult students tend to be self-directed in that they can use the available resources to access information. So lecturers become a tool in giving them the information, and then students take that information and expand it. So essentially adults come into an institution, they want to learn whatever they've come to study. It's different from the schooling system where everything's directed and prescribed. Coming to adult learning, you've made an elective choice to come to the institute to learn whatever the subject matter is. You've got the older learner, they're motivated but in a different way in that they're used to going into a classroom and information being given to them, they learn it and then they regurgitate it back. Whereas our generation X's and Y's and now millenniums have just been taught tools at the school, particularly under our NCEA system. And so they come with that, knowing that they're going to have to do a lot of the self-directed themselves, and equally knowing that the lecturer's not going to know everything. I think the key is recognising the 4 distinct learning styles that have been identified as visual, audio, kinesthetic and the read-write learner. And so even though you're from a different generation and you have different expectations, you still will identify strongly with 1 or 2, or sometimes all 4 of the learning styles. So as a tutor, it's recognising the different learning styles and adapting your teaching methods to accommodate them. I think sometimes the way you deliver that will be slightly different, so that all students are given a course outline with very clear direction as to what the expectations are. And then I think you've got to work with that with each generation just to make sure that it is absolutely clear. For me, we have sessions that are specified for that to enable students to clarify, yes, this is what you want from me, or what you don't want. Another key thing I think is putting the learning back onto the learner and creating contracts and things at the beginning of your classes at the beginning of the year, and saying, okay, well, what do you want from me? And so that it becomes transparent. So then you don't get into this, like, you recognise that everyone brings their own culture to the institute, but equally recognising that you have to respect each other's culture and difference.
In its essence, adult learning is about equipping mature students with skills that they can use in and out of the workplace, during formal and informal settings. To make sure that students get the most out of class time, it can be helpful to follow and adopt some learning theories.
Learning theories are just ways of looking at how people learn. So the 3 main ones that we're familiar with are behaviourism, cognitivism and constructivism. And a 4th that's been developed recently is connectivism. It's really developed because of the internet and because now learning is worldwide, and so we can develop learning communities all over the world, and we can learn from other people and other cultures. It's not just the tools that you're learning with, it's the other people whose knowledge you can tap into. So connectivism is a really valuable theory to add into the adult education theory mix. Behaviourism is really about replicating behaviour or copying behaviour. And an example of behaviourism, I think, is when you play a sport. You learn some basic skills that you copy for a start. And to learn the key concepts, you'll probably copy someone and you'll practice them over and over again until they become a habit. And that's what behaviourism is. Constructivism is when you use some of those skills and you put your own flair onto them to create something different. So probably in an industry like film and TV, there are some basic skills like using a camera, but then if you want to create something really interesting, you might use your camera in a variety of ways, so you get more creative with it, and that's constructing something new and different. Cognitivism, I tend to think, is more of the thought process, so it's thinking about how you learned, and it's thinking about why this is valuable, and it's understanding all the processes. So for the best learning to happen, what is good is to have a combination of them all. For example, for someone to play a sport well, you want them to have really good basic skills, you want them to have some creative flair, and you want them to think about why that worked really well or what they could do differently next time to make it better. A way of learning that's closely related to how adults learn is andragogy. Andragogy was a term coined by a man named Malcolm Knowles, and he found that adults learn differently to children. And he had some main concepts that adults prefer when they're learning. And they're things like that adults are motivated differently to children. Adults want to come to a course and they want to know what the outcomes are, And so you need to be very clear with them about that, and they want to know how what they're learning can be applied. They want to have a purpose. I think too what's really important from NOLS is to remember that adults come to their learning with a whole background of other learning, and there may have been good or not so good experiences. So you need to bring those good experiences into their learning and be aware that they may not have had such good experiences, and try to boost their confidence and make them realise that what they know is all valuable, and those experiences, whatever they are, they can enrich their learning experience.
For many students, studying within set times in a classroom is not an ideal situation, either as a result of family commitments, geographical location, convenience, or many other reasons. Some adult learners choose not to study on site with an education provider. To meet the needs of these students, the Southern Institute of Technology created a comprehensive distance learning solution through Sit to Learn.
Basically, people think of distance learning as I'm over here, the teacher's over there, and I'm learning in that. And it used to be, you know, you'd send out stuff in a box, somebody get it, they do the work in their own home, they send it back, and that. Modern technology has really opened up a lot happening here. Your distance learner is still that. There's somebody at a distance, they're not in the classroom, but that distance might just be a block away. It's mainly for people who can't fit in sitting in the traditional classroom with the, the teacher in front and them behind or whatever. They can't fit it into their lifestyle. Distance learning nowadays, though, is about a lot more than just a booklet that you work through or the essay that you write and send back and post back. You can have asynchronous learning where something might get posted on a site or in a system, or even with the post, the old post, snail mail. Or you can have something that's synchronous, where I might say to the students, look, we're going to have a virtual class meeting, or I'm going to instant message you. Texting is similar. Texting is synchronous. If I send a text and I get a text back at the same time, both people are on their phones at the same time. Instant messaging, it builds off that synchronous same feeling. You can do the same with distance learning. You do make assumptions about your distance learners. You assume that your distance learner really, really wants to do this because they've gone out of their way to do it, and they're opening up their personal life to have the study come in. And you also are assuming that they are motivated, that they will be able to timetable it out. And sometimes, for all the best will in the world, things still don't happen. Life throws us curveballs and you have to work with the students about that. There are pros and cons too. Distance learning isn't suitable for everybody. And that's not anything wrong with the students or the teachers or anything like that. It just doesn't suit everyone. Some people like to have that connectivity of the people in the class they can see, not the connectivity of knowing there are people here that I can discussion board with or email or text or whatever. They like to see the people. And it's the same on the teaching side of it. Some teachers like to see the classrooms there, see the light go on in the students' eyes when they get it, and that's where you get that real buzz, rather than getting the email from a student saying, oh, I got it. There are pros and cons to both, but it's good all around. It's just picking the mode that suits you. And then you've got your blended delivery, which is a little bit of each. And so horses for courses.